Welcome back to CIA Declassified. Imagine you're the CIA's top historian. You've spent years writing a top secret only internal summary of a coup. You detailed exactly how you overthrew a prime minister, how much you paid the rioters, and which generals were on the payroll. You assume it'll stay in a vault forever. And then, in the year 2000, the New York Times publishes the whole thing. Welcome back to CIA Declassified. Today we're looking at the leaked ledger, the story of Project TP-Ajax. This was the 1953 overthrow of Iranian Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. This was the 1953 overthrow of him. For decades, the CIA officially denied involvement. They called it a spontaneous democratic uprising. But thanks to a massive declassification blunder involving the Wilbur report, we now have the receipts. And folks, the receipts are wild. The Wilbur report, written by Donald Wilbur, the operations chief architect, is essentially a how-to guide for destroying a government. The logs reveal that the CIA didn't just support the coup, they stage managed it. They spent over $1 million in 1950s money to hire professional rent-a-mobs. These rioters were paid to run through the streets of Tehran, smashing windows and screaming for Mossadegh's head, while agency-controlled newspapers published fabricated stories about the prime minister's communist ties. A quote from the Wilbur report: "The military was reluctant, the public was confused. It was necessary to create the appearance of a national crisis so profound that the only solution seemed to be the return of the Shah. We provided the crisis." End quote. The agency actually failed on the first attempt. The first coup on August 15th was a total bust. Mossadegh caught wind of it, arrested the messengers, and the Shah fled to Rome in a panic. The CIA headquarters actually sent a telegram to their man in Tehran, Kermit Roosevelt, telling him to pack up and go home. Roosevelt's response? He ignored the order and stayed to finish the job. To make the communist threat look real, the CIA orchestrated bombings of the homes of prominent religious leaders, making it appear as though Mossadegh's secular supporters were attacking Islam. It was a classic false flag operation designed to turn the devout Iranian middle class against their own elected leader. The CIA's primary tool for propaganda was a man nicknamed the Great Persuader, an Iranian journalist who was on a monthly retainer of $150,000 to plant anti-Mossadegh stories. By the height of the operation, the CIA estimated they controlled nearly 80% of the Tehran press. Kermit Roosevelt didn't just use money, he used theater. He famously met the Shah in the back of a car, hiding under a blanket to avoid detection. When the Shah expressed doubt, Roosevelt told him the plan was backed by both the US president and the British prime minister, effectively cornering the monarch into cooperation. Even with the leak, the official version of the TP-Ajax files still has some massive holes. The heaviest redactions in the current files involve the British coordination section. Speculation by historians suggests that the redacted pages detail a secret deal between the CIA and MI6 regarding the specific oil fields that were to be returned to Western control. The theory is that the economic motives are so nakedly described that the US government fears their release would permanently destroy diplomatic relations in the Middle East. Further speculation surrounds the death list. There are whispers that the redacted pages include the names of Iranian officers who refused to participate and were removed to ensure the coup's success. The speculation is that the agency didn't just buy a government, they liquidated the opposition. There is a long-standing conspiracy theory that the CIA didn't actually lose the 1953 records in the 1960s as they claimed for decades. While the agency officially stated the files were destroyed due to lack of storage space, many believe the records were hidden to protect the identity of a high-ranking Iranian cleric who may have been a primary CIA asset. Some researchers speculate that the rent-a-mob was more organized than the Wilbur report admits. A common conspiracy theory suggests the CIA utilized members of the Iranian underworld, specifically world-class wrestlers and strongmen, to lead the street brawls, providing a physical intimidation factor that the military alone couldn't provide. Conspiracy theorists often point to a missing link between TP Ajax and the later rise of the SOVAK secret police. The speculation is that the redacted training manuals from the 1953 operation became the foundational blueprint for the brutal interrogation techniques the Shah regime would use for the next 2 decades. Was Project TP Ajax a success? In the short term, it was the agency's crown jewel. It proved they could change the map of the world for the price of a few suitcases of cash. In the long term, it planted the seeds of the 1979 revolution. A quote from Kermit Roosevelt after the coup: "It was a mathematical certainty. If you control the radio, the military, and the mobs, you control the country. We just had to make sure the math worked." End quote. The coup was so successful that it became the template for CIA interventions in Guatemala, the Congo, and Chile. It convinced a generation of agency planners that they didn't need to win hearts and minds. They just needed to buy them. Following the coup, the Shah rewarded the Western powers by signing over 40% of Iran's oil interests to a consortium of U.S. oil companies. This reversed Mossadegh's nationalization and solidified the oil for security doctrine that would define American foreign policy for half a century. The CIA was so proud of the operation that they awarded Kermit Roosevelt the National Security Medal in a secret ceremony. Ironically, Roosevelt later wrote in his memoirs that the agency tried to repeat the Ajax formula in other countries where it wasn't applicable, leading to some of the greatest disasters in Cold War history. TP Ajax wasn't just about guns. It was a breakthrough in the dark arts. As far as operational breakthroughs go, black radio propaganda. The agency perfected the art of seizing national radio stations and broadcasting pre-recorded news that convinced the public the government had already fallen, even when it hadn't. Pseudo-gangs. The project pioneered the use of fake mobs, protesters disguised as the opposition to commit acts of violence that would turn the public against the prime minister. And the station in a box. The CIA developed portable high-powered printing presses and radio transmitters that could be set up in a safe house basement to generate a counterculture overnight. As far as currency destabilization goes, the agency flooded the local market with counterfeit Iranian reals to drive up inflation and spark middle-class resentment against Mossadegh's economic policies. This was one of the first times the CIA used economic warfare as a primary lever for a coup. The ghost of 1953 still haunts the streets of Tehran. TP Ajax was the moment the CIA realized it could be a kingmaker. But as the Wilbur report proves, even the most perfect secret has a way of finding the light. Next time on CIA Declassified, we dive into the deep blue. We examine Project Seek. How do you train a wild animal to find a needle in a Pacific haystack? We'll look at the declassified logs of the agency's marine mammal program, from sea lions recovering lost missile parts to the suicide dolphins of the Cold War. We explore the day the CIA went to sea with the animal kingdom. Join us for the deepest secret. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.